Hello, welcome to the AppleInsider Podcast. I'm William Gallagher. Our sponsors this time are MasterClass and Nordlayer. More about them later. And for the very first time, slightly crossing fingers here, I am joined by Wes Hilliard in a new way. Frankly, it's a way he has dreamt of and I might possibly have worried a little bit about. Unless this has all gone horribly wrong, you will not be able to hear a single difference. And right now, actually, as I record it, I can't. So I've got to ask, Wes, are you using the iPad's new and so very long awaited podcast recording feature?
We are, and it's a bit difficult to say exactly how this is going to turn out. I am incredibly worried that this audio is going to be a mess. So excuse us as we record this episode over iPad. There's one major issue that we've encountered. I have no gain control. So my microphone is taking in all the audio full blast.
Well, I'll tell you what, because you can't have people listening to bad audio. I know I do that usually, but it's all working now. How about this? If it turns out that everything you've heard so far is in any way screechy or bad, the remainder of the episode will be me on my own, impersonating Wes every now and again. I mean, I just have to mention games a few times, don't I?
Yeah,
and Apple Vision Pro, and we're good. We're good. Okay. This is obviously, this week is going to be about all the news we've got from WWDC, and there's so much of it we really need to rush into this. But there is also AppleInsider Plus. Now, I mean, take a guess. What do you think it's going to be about? It is WWDC, but you may already have heard, in fact, actually, if you haven't, you're kind of going to hear every announcement examined in detail. But AppleInsider Plus is not about the news. It's about so many things, but you and I and Wes being in this Apple ecosystem, hopefully enjoying it while we're there, and this time looking at what actually a friend said to me earlier in the week was the Super Bowl. The Apple users Super Bowl, he said, and he meant it of himself too. WWDC, the show. AppleInsider is going to be about how it worked, what the best bits of the keynote were, and how much we enjoyed or didn't, different parts of it. Now, I should say, if you're not already an AppleInsider Plus subscriber, well, you can join us via Patreon or Apple Podcasts Connect, details in the show notes, and it will be a treat to have you in the conversation. But now, Wes, there's been a lot of different things. I just sounded quite excited there, I thought, about WWDC, and possibly not giving much away there. I was and I am. I was looking forward to it. Had a good time. It's great. But a lot of other people, ranging from, users like us to stock market analysts, have been going, yeah, whatever. Not enough Apple intelligence. What do I care? Where do you sit on the good, bad, dud sort of scale?
I thought the keynote was really well done. It was fun as usual. I liked the opening and closing videos, the announcements in between. As we've had time away from the initial shock and awe of everything, I can definitely say that this is what you would call a smaller year overall, but in a weird way. Like, it is a huge redesign. It is huge for iPadOS, but if you look at each individual operating system, beyond what ecosystem updates we got, we're going to discuss the Games app, we're going to discuss phone app changes and design changes across the system. But piece for piece, tvOS, not much. watchOS, a couple, literally 2 features. macOS, the design and Spotlight, that's about it. And then you look at iPad, yes, huge redesign as far as the design and how the windowing system works. And then you have iPhone, which has the most changes across the board. So depending on your favorite platform, you might look at this and say, oh, this is boring, especially if you're a Mac user. This is probably what you'd call a boring year. But I don't know. I think overall it was a good WWDC. It was very measured. You could tell Apple only announced what they were ready to release. I don't think there's a single thing that is missing from the betas this year, William.
I think the background rendering of Final Cut Pro and stuff. I've actually stopped my Final Cut Pro iPad subscription, so I can't test this. But someone else I heard was trying it and it wasn't working yet. So maybe that's still to come. But other than that, you're right. I can't anything except actually I say you're right. You're right about that. WatchOS. I saw this headline that said 10 great new features in WatchOS, and it started with it tells the time. It's like they were really scrabbling. It's like they'd written, "We've got to fill out 10. We've got to fill out 10. What are we going to do?" I haven't bothered updating to WatchOS 26. I had to hesitate there over the right number, but I will. But you did also say if you're a Mac user, you'll be disappointed, and I am a Mac user. And I wasn't, then I was, now I'm not again. Should we just leave it like that, actually, and come to it at another point? I think Liquid Glass has a lot of gloss on it, but actually on the Mac there are some really key productivity things. So I came away very happy, and then actually examining it for Apple Insider, I came away thinking, well, it is kind of surface stuff. But now, a couple of days further in, still and intensively using it, I think the visual stuff actually helps you get to certain features a bit more easily.
Yeah.
And the stuff with Spotlight is definitely a boon, unless you're the developer of Alfred 5, Launchbar 6, or Raycast. But, this could.
This is one of those situations where I think people miss some of the points.
Sure. Yeah.
They're looking at this and saying, well, it's just a design change, or this is just a skin. It's the same old iOS. I don't think any of that's particularly accurate, especially if you've used this system. And ignore the screenshots. It's very easy to find some ugly screenshots, but those are usually interstitials of animations more than they are actual use cases. There are a few places where legibility is difficult, but if it's difficult, you just try again in a different way, right? It's very liquid in that way. But I think that the way that this is built, the fluidity of it, the animations of it, how menus show up where you press buttons, how everything just works in that way, is a redesign of the operating system itself. It's not just a skin. This is way deeper than just changing what the menus look like and what the buttons look like. And it goes further than that. I think the reason why iPadOS could get this windowing system is because of the liquid glass design. You have to look.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Think about it, right? Like, why look at how all the menus operate and everything appears and disappears and opens and closes. On a 2D flat plane, showing where all those objects are is so much harder, because then you're relying maybe on a shadow, or you're using differentiated colors, which isn't really how Apple does things. So it's all one color, it's all flat, and it's all 2D buttons, and it makes everything very difficult to find. Do you remember when Safari, I think 2 years ago, got a new bottom tab and they immediately reversed it?
Yes. I think they still left the option, but even the default was the way it used to be. I was reminded of that this time by the new positioning of things, and I'm trying not to switch them off. They have, this time, at least most of it, there are options to change it right away, but I'm trying to use it, and it does seem easier.
Well, I think there's a significant difference this time. When they did it that time, it was flat, and it obscured content on the page. It took over the entire bottom portion of the system, and it hid so many controls in a way that was unintelligible. You had to find the button to click inside of the address bar. The liquid glass design not only puts it at the bottom, but it also gets out of the way. When you scroll, it disappears. They reappear when you tap it. The controls are all very visible. It's very obvious what are buttons, because it's all three-dimensional. It's all textured in a way that your eyes can easily locate and see that that is a different object on the screen and not part of the web page. And that, I think, is what enables this design now, where it didn't work before. And now apply that to every part of the operating system. Apply that to iPadOS, and that explains everything, because this new windowing system on iPadOS isn't limited to the M4 iPad Pro. It goes all the way back to the A12Z iPad.
I didn't know that. I knew it was not just Pro, but okay, well, that's good. I imagine it might be a bit slower or something on the older machines, but livable with, I presume.
The limitation this time, And then, see, this is, I don't want to get too much into iPadOS because we have so much to talk about on iOS, but just real quick,
Sure.
the limitation here is RAM, and the number of windows you can open is based on RAM. So I think it's 4 gigs, you get 3 windows, and then it goes from there. There's no more slide over. There's no more split view. Split view kind of exists, but you get a lot more granularity. And you can just use full screen apps if you want to, all the way down to iPad mini. The difference here is this is not Stage Manager. Stage Manager is still a separate layer. So you can choose to do multiple apps on a home screen and open and close those. Up to, gosh, it's some ridiculous number now, 15 apps, 16 apps on a window. Or Stage Manager allows you to have multiple stages. So some of the restrictions remain from the previous setup. You can't plug an iPad mini into an external display. That still doesn't work. So all of those limitations for external display support, all the limitations for Stage Manager are still there. But you do get all of the windowing features across all iPads running iPadOS 26. So it is a separate system outside of Stage Manager. What it has replaced is the foundational layer of split view and slide over.
I agree with you that we want to talk about iOS and the iPhone because that's the biggest thing. But I need to check this because I literally could not find Stage Manager on my iPad anymore. And I didn't know whether that was it's gone or Apple has just realised I keep trash talking it and so they're taking it away from me. Does Stage Manager still exist on your iPad?
Yes. I actually use it. So It is a setting in the multitasking menu in settings.
Okay, I went through Control Center because it used to be a Control Center button, and even a search for Stage didn't find it. But perhaps okay, all right.
That toggle might be gone, but the settings multitasking section hasn't.
Oh, so they've hidden it, but they've hidden it a bit more. They're protecting me a little. I still don't like it. I'm curious though. iPad Mini doesn't connect externally, but on your current iPads, you've told me before, and I remember this because I was quite shocked by it, when you connect an external display, it is in Stage Manager, and there's nothing you can do about it. Has that gone away?
That's a good question. I don't think so, but also you can just ignore it and just resize your windows however you like, because the problem was before, because Stage Manager was enabled, you had no split view and slide over. It was one or the other. Now it's both. So I can just go on. I can use the traffic lights to press and hold and tile my windows, and it does it all the same on the external monitor. Full screen apps, edge to edge apps, side by side apps. All of that is still the same. Stage Manager or no, you can just ignore it if you want to, which is why, Good. So it's nice. It's a much better. The whole thing on iPadOS is absolutely amazing. And I want to address this while we're talking about it. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, this means Apple is just turning iPadOS into macOS," and I'm still going to argue no. That this is still a separate and distinct system. Mm-hmm. It is still very iPad-y. And it still lets you use the iPad as an iPad if you want to. And I think that's what's interesting here. It is not the old paradigm. There's a lot of stuff here that is still not macOS. The grabbers between windows that lets me resize 2 windows at once, for example, is not part of macOS. There's a lot of interesting stuff here that honestly could do to transfer to macOS, not the other way around. So,
okay, but now hang on. I can't. That's fighting talk. Saying we need to get iPad onto Mac. I'm Mac first, but I have to say, while we're briefly talking about the iPad, I thought the iPad and iPadOS 26 was kind of the standout star of the show. I really like it for it. So we will dwell on it, and I'm sure I'll get a bit excited about it in AppleInsider Plus. But you're right, iOS is the thing, except I know that part of iOS 26, and you've already mentioned it, is Apple Games, which, by the way, you named correctly a few weeks ago. Would you like to talk us through Apple Games while I just wander off and get a coffee or do a to-do list task or something?
Well, the thing with Apple Games is it's about what we expected as far as bare bones. It's a launcher, and it has a social feature that connects you to Game Center. The one thing that I liked that was not rumored or guessed was challenges that you can set up between players if you're playing single-player games. I find that interesting. I hope we see more options, more things. And Apple also announced on macOS this game tab that opens that lets you access resolution controls and stuff like that. So they're clearly getting some advice from the two developers that they bought out from Sneaky Sasquatch. So there's a lot of inspiration of like, oh, this is what gamers want. I've been poking through settings. I can now have a game controller with a home button and map that home button to open Apple games as automatically by pressing it. So I can turn on a controller or attach a backbone, hit the home button, launch Apple games, and then use the controller to navigate the app, launch a game, and invite friends to a FaceTime audio call and lobby with them. It's almost what I expected, except now we're going to have to wait for developers to see if they bother with the lobbying system or not.
I like the concept of sharing and playing with other people. Of course, I'm not an unsociable person, but I think it has to be done right, and it sounds like it is here. This is on my mind at the moment because Duolingo about 2 weeks ago just forced me into a friend sharing thing with someone called Carla. Carla spelt with a K. And that to me is the spy master in the George Smiley novels. But, he or she has not responded. Every single day I'm told you've been paired up with this person for this many days. And now it's starting to say, plead with them to join in. Carla, if there's any chance you're hearing this, I didn't ask for it. It came up with no option to cancel. It only had a continue button. And by the way, if anyone knows a fourth way to contact Duolingo support and ask for help, I'd be grateful, because absolute silence from them since. Apple, one I would expect, is somewhat better. I've previously been really confused by Apple Arcade, Game Center, and kind of standalone apps. So I did actually open Apple Games, and I went through it to launch the Sudoku app that I play, Good Sudoku, and it just seemed to carry on like it always did. So I don't fully get what it gets me other than this social aspect. Is it worth looking into, is what I'm really asking, I suppose.
For you, I don't think it's going to do anything. And I mean, unless you start challenging people to solve puzzles and see if you... I'm sure Sudoku has a leaderboard, and maybe you can solve them at a certain speed. I don't know. But William, I want to tell you about the most important part of iOS 26.
Is this the music? Is it?
No. This is the new Apple News Plus puzzle.
Oh, great. Yeah, fine. For anybody in America, this is an issue, and an ongoing issue. I admit I would rather we got Apple Card here if we had to have one thing or the other, but we don't have Apple Card, and we don't have any puzzles. I did recheck. I understand, and I don't know how I heard this, it certainly wasn't from Apple directly, but there are some big rights issues. Who knew that a crossword could be copyright? But I suppose, an individual one could be. But yeah, I am bereft of puzzles, so go on then. Oh, I got a new emoji tab, so that's, keeping me really occupied. What's going on in puzzles that I am really missing?
I just sent you a screenshot in Slack of the emoji game.
Okay.
That is the new... So it is... that someone invented this specifically to make you very upset, William.
Okay. Well, so far it's looking a bit rude, actually. Well, mate, this is the cover art for it. Okay.
No, this is the game. You grab one of the emoji things at the bottom and drag it to the dotted lines, and it fills in the space based on what the word is they're trying to say with the emoji.
Okay. Did I tell you the story about the man who was fined $60,000 for using a thumbs up emoji?
Oh,
yeah,
no.
It's real. It's a
That's
genuine
awful.
court case. And that's just one of the many reasons that I'm not going to be going for this, but okay.
But in all seriousness, iOS 26. So, first of all, you've run the beta on a device, right?
Yes.
What do you think of liquid glass on iOS because it is, I think, the one that uses it the most.
I think so. And at first, I thought this is really good. It felt like getting a whole new iPhone, and even for a beta, it's actually fast and responsive, and I liked that. In fact, I still like it. I know I'm sounding like past tense here. I think with all of these things, you get used to it ridiculously quickly. But I did very much enjoy playing around with it, and I like Control Center. I still seem to notice every time when you open a folder that the background is translucent. It's not transparent like Apple keeps saying, it's translucent. But then I did try the all glass look, and I thought that was marvellous until I couldn't find an app that I wanted. Mm-hmm. You'd think muscle memory would have told me 3 down, 2 across, but it really didn't. And actually, I've got that on the Mac a lot. Going through the dock, I'm finding it sometimes a bit of a chore. In fact, I'm using the dock less because of it, but it's very pretty. And I know there's you can have it regular. I don't know what the other one is in the middle. There's a second one. Third is clear, and fourth is a tinting thing. And I kind of switch that on and off again because I just don't think I've got the patience to play with infinite varieties of tinting. But it all looks very good. It just maybe doesn't work for me quite as much as I thought at first. Are you more of a fan?
I really enjoy this. I like the optionality. I have turned on the dark clear mode for sleep, for my sleep focus, and it kind of shuts everything down and makes it black and white in a way, which is interesting. But everything is layered now, and so it just takes on this effect as you move your phone. It moves back and forth in a way. The light reflections on the icons and all of that. It can be overwhelming at times, but I'm enjoying how it works. The buttons are funny. If you're scrolling through like the news app and see a play button, sometimes it's like warping someone's face, and that's kind of funny. Right. But overall, I like it. I think I have a very strong feeling that Apple's going to tone some of this back. Yeah. I think if I was Apple, the way I would solve some people's complaints about legibility is if you stop scrolling or stop moving and just leave everything steady state, the windows will kind of slowly fog. Right?
Oh, that's clever. I would never have thought of that. Mm-hmm. Yes, I like that. And that's you've instantly turned me around. That's now what I want for it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. That way, like, it's still, translucent. It's still giving you that effect, but the longer it sits there, the more it kind of becomes more opaque, just to give, and it would add more animations to it, which is something Apple seems to be into. But yes, we'll see. I think Beta 2 will tell us where this is going. Will they pull back? Will they change a lot of options? Because that's the big indicator. Once we're past Beta 2, it's either going to dramatically change or it's going to stay identical.
Actually, this is getting really picky, but I've got to ask because I'm just curious the way you phrase something. You have a sleep focus mode and it turns everything darker. I use standby when I go to bed, and so it just displays a clock. And I have noticed it used to have, I use the very wide clock that's red hands, red numbers, all that stuff. And since the new upgrade, it's red numbers, but white minutes and seconds hands, and I don't know why. But does this mean that you're up in the middle of the night using your phone when you should be sleeping?
Well, I work till the middle of the night.
Oh, that's true. Yes, okay. Yeah. While the rest of us laze around, you're beavering away. Okay, that makes sense. So it's not a sleep focus mode. It's everyone else is a sleep focus mode. Okay.
Well, it kind of I get off work at 11, and the sleep focus mode kicks in at 12:15 to kind of nudge me towards the bed. All right. But yeah, it's mostly just to get rid of distractions and notification bubbles. Like I can't see, there's no more notifications. A lot of things are filtered, no more calls or texts. The focus mode isn't for me to use it. It's to keep people from bothering me, right? It's still a filter. It's just a more advanced do not disturb. And it's because of Apple's advanced automations with health and everything, it knows my bedtime and wake times and stuff like that, and it coordinates with that to activate sleep mode. So it's just one of those automatic things that kind of closes out the world, and it's a nice feature. And you can tie a lot of automations to sleep mode being activated. So I did go through and find there's no changes to focus modes. There's still the same limits, the same filters. Everything there is identical. Overall, I like how they've basically it still is a reskinning in a way, because the functionality of all the apps haven't changed except for the ones they specifically redesigned, like the phone app.
Right. Do you know, I've only used the phone app through my iPad so far. I've just realised that. I don't make that many phone calls anyway, but I can see me never bothering to get my phone out anymore. What are the changes in the phone? It's supposed to be easier to, call people, I suppose.
Well, this is one of those frustrating things that I've talked about before. I don't know why we have FaceTime, phone, and contacts. They should be tabs of the same app. They really should be. In fact, the phone app has a contacts tab that is just the entire contacts app.
Yes.
I don't know if you've noticed that, but if you open that contacts tab, it is the entire contacts app through and through. You can edit contacts in there. You can do everything from that tab. It's very odd, very redundant. But anyway, there's now a new unified view in phone. It combines favorites with recents and voicemails. There's also more filtering options. It's nice. I would really like it if they just brought FaceTime in as a tab and gave us that FaceTime video view. Let you scroll through your live voicemails from that tab, switch to the phone tab, so your unified view for voicemail, switch to the contacts tab. It would just be nice if it was all one app. And I think it's really interesting how they did all of this and didn't touch the contacts app. I will point out, contact posters are now on iPad and Mac.
Yes.
So they did do that.
Yeah.
They're very broken in the beta, but they are there.
Well, actually, how about this? There's something I have been using that I really like, and in fact, I would like more of it. The expansion of visual intelligence. Last year, this was the thing that seemed great to me about Apple Intelligence. I've been so many places where I've pointed at a building that I've always been curious about, and almost always it'll tell me where I am, what that building is, history of it. I mean, once it just said Edwardian style or something worthless like that, but usual good. And now you can do it for things that are on your screen. You don't have to point your camera at something. It's just whatever is on a website, you can take it. I would really like to see that on the iPad, and I don't truly see why it isn't. Unless you can tell me there's a button I've missed, another button I've missed. That'd be good.
I think it's simply because the framework for visual intelligence is an iPhone framework, and it's just not, it's never been on iPad. They could add it later, but yeah, it's currently iPhone only.
Okay. But it's very nice.
And it's using the same systems as the visual intelligence that was in the camera control. They're just skipping a step, right? If you press and hold the camera control button and open visual intelligence, you take a photo or scan what's in the viewfinder. Yeah. What the screenshot function is doing is basically skipping you to the point where you've already taken a photo. That's all. But it's a nice addition because now you can use it on the web instead of just in real life. So it evolves the technology.
This episode is brought to you by MasterClass. MasterClass is the online training service that gets you experts famously at the top of their industries, instructing you across categories ranging from arts to cooking to business, science and more. And this time I've got some news. Previously, I couldn't, actually many times now I have, infused at you about what I think is a tremendous service. And it's not like I thought I was alone, but now it's been reported that 88% of MasterClass members feel the service has made a positive impact on their lives. Do you know, I've not one thin clue what the other 12% have been watching, but I do really get about that impact. For it's easy to list the people, the deeply impressive people who are instructors on MasterClass. Well, I'm thinking it's easy in the sense that they're all so impressive, but it's hard because there's so many of them. For myself, I started with Jodie Foster. I've studied everything Aaron Sorkin has to say, and Shonda Rhimes. I'm still getting into James Cameron's masterclasses, but next up, I'm planning, I've got more than 3 hours of direct, practical advice from Margaret Atwood. Well, so that will be writing advice, and I'm a writer. Jodie Foster was on directing. I just fancied knowing what she said. James Cameron is teaching technology and the arts, but then after them, there's music, business, food, design, lifestyle, science, and even sport. In every case that I've watched and studied so far, MasterClass is always very practical, yet also very confidence building, I think is the phrase I'm looking for. You get a world-class instructor who treats you like an equal, and it's like getting personal face-to-face tuition that you couldn't dream of getting in any other way. And yet here you can. Here they are, through MasterClass for $10 a month, billed annually. One fee gets you everything, gets you everyone, unlimited access to the entire streaming platform. Plus, our listeners always get great discounts on MasterClass of at least 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. See MasterClass's latest deal, again, at least 15% off at masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. Digit 1, digit 5, AppleInsider15. And thanks to MasterClass, well, for all the classes that I've been learning from, as well as supporting the Apple Insider Podcast.
We've discussed iPadOS, and we can get back to that today or in another episode because we have a lot to talk about. So I want to get to Apple Intelligence, and visual intelligence is part of that. So what did you think of the keynote overall for Apple Intelligence? Because I'm hearing a lot of chatter about Apple, they swept it under the rug. They're pretending it doesn't exist. It's not even there. And I'm like, they spent the whole keynote talking about Apple Intelligence. Every feature they announced had something to do with it in some way. Live translation, Workout Buddy.
Yeah.
There's a new Apple Intelligence feature for reminders that sorts your reminders for you. It is everywhere. And I think
shortcuts as well. Yeah, that was a big thing.
Shortcuts.
Yeah.
Because and the API, the biggest one is the API that will truly make Apple Intelligence everywhere. Right. Carrot Weather will now be able to specifically insult me based on my lunch. So.
Okay. This is what it's come to. But yes, you're right. I want to say, actually, I was wrong about something before the keynote. I was saying there will not be any hardware. There's no more chance of there being hardware than Apple saying we've got a problem with Apple Intelligence. They actually said we have a problem with that. Well, they phrased it a bit better than that, but I thought they fronted it up. Craig Federighi saying it was taking a bit longer than they thought. I mean, the same message, but right there when the spotlight was on them, and then they went in, like he said, to everything else, touching on it. I mean, I threw in there about shortcuts because I am quite startled by the difference shortcuts make. So the short version of shortcuts is there are now half a dozen Apple Intelligence actions you can take. But it took me 10 minutes to create a shortcut that's the equivalent of the Cleft AI app. It lets me record my voice speaking for a few minutes and then transcribes it, sorts it out into a coherent order and pops out a to-do list that will go straight into OmniFocus. That was because Apple Intelligence, I used it in steps rather than, okay, I've written this, now I want to see how badly it can make it concise. It was a useful tool in sequence, and suddenly I am seeing a benefit to Apple Intelligence that I really hadn't considered.
Shortcuts includes actions to directly throw something to private cloud compute.
Yes.
The more powerful version, which developers don't even have access to. You can also throw to ChatGPT various functions. You can use image playgrounds and their new filtering options. Image Playground, let me tell you, William, this app, it is still terrible as far as... So
I thought that was going to go another way there, and I think, have I been wrong ignoring it? Okay, still terrible, but a different flavour of terrible.
Yeah, so Apple's generation system better than it was, at least from my results. They are seem to have finer detail. I look more like myself, which is nice. But also, you get more. There's an expression menu as well now. You can choose angry or happy or sad or whatever. So that's all fine and dandy, but it's still very image playgrounds quality images. So flip that to what they've added, and that is the ChatGPT image function. You can choose from one of their predestined layouts, which is like anime, cartoon, oil painting, or you can define it yourself by typing to ChatGPT in Image Playground. So this is a big deal because not only is this Apple Intelligence at work and getting people exposed to it, but it's now a destination on your iPhone without installing any additional apps to access ChatGPT's image generation function completely privately. So even if you're sharing your photo to ChatGPT, Apple's deal still stands. They cannot use it to train their algorithm. So you can feel safe altering a picture of yourself or your family. It's still icky because it's ChatGPT, and that's a whole different conversation. I won't get into the ethics of ChatGPT and their energy usage and all of that, but the access to it, people want it, right? So getting beyond all of the ethics and everything, and a discussion we can have another time, people want access to this stuff.
Yeah.
And now it is a default application on your iPhone that I can go in, and I've tested this. You can just say, here's my cat, make it anime. And it does. And it's cute. And if that's what people want to do, fine. I mean, I've known artists that do commission work for that kind of stuff. If I want an anime version of my cat, I will find an artist, pay them to do it, and get a beautiful thing to hang on my wall. Me as a person, I'm still going to do that. But I think this is kind of like our discussion of piracy, right? The argument for piracy is the people who are pirating media are the people who are never going to be a part of that marketplace in the first place, and may sometimes actually drive them to purchase that media. I know, I'm not. I know it's the argument.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the argument. I'm not promoting piracy. I'm just saying that's the argument, and I'm not saying it's a good argument. It's just if you can make that argument about that, it's a similar use case here. I'm personally not taking anything away from an artist by playing around with a toy that I would never use these images in media. I'm not going to use a ChatGPT driven image playground image for work other than illustration. Every now and then we do an article, like I think I did one this week, where I used Apple's image playground, not even ChatGPT, just the image playground output, and put an image of it spelling WWDC in a weird background.
Oh yes.
Right.
Yes.
That kind of stuff, sure. But like, I'm not going to turn like my personal blog. I'm not going to use image playgrounds to generate images for that's just dumb. I can make a much better image myself. So I think as a toy, it's interesting, and it's what people wanted. And Apple is giving people access to that way more private. If you open the ChatGPT app or go to their website and do the same thing, they are getting every snippet of information about you, your device, who you are, your image, and just sucking it all up into their algorithm.
But not what you ate for dinner. Okay, that's the difference. I can tell you, I did actually once use an image playground thing on a 58 Keys YouTube video. I did it as the poster, and it was part of the point of the episode. This is kind of what you get. And wow, did I get criticised for it. Presumably by people who didn't watch the episode where I was saying, look, this is what you get. Yes. But, I thought, actually, I was quite pleased with that one, but all right. Actually, too, you're talking effectively a brand new feature in Image Playground, a standard thing on your phone, but there are other standard features, and we've kind of nodded at some of them. I wasn't fully kidding when I said music has been changed. I like the full screen artwork that you can now have when you're listening to something, particularly since I'm tending to use my phone just on a charger, which is your fault. By the way, I leave it on charger all the time now, and there it is by the side of my Mac, looking at me nicely. But then there is also, this is just like the smallest part of one of the biggest features I think we haven't mentioned. There was so much about translation, and one of the things that really made me sit up was translation of lyrics in songs. And I don't know what's going on with that, because I mentioned it before, I'm particularly keen on Francesca Valenzuela's song. She's an American-born Chilean singer. I think she sings in Spanish. I get very mixed up. But I would really like to know what it is I'm singing in the shower. And nope, it isn't there. But I tracked down the song Apple showed, and when you play that, yes, there it is. The lyrics are in line. So yes, presumably it's slowly rolling out. But given that they can do live translation, it seems odd that they've got to go through every song. Is there a legal reason?
No, and it just might not be fully enabled. This is a beta, so Apple might not be like flooding the system. They're turning things on slowly. tvOS, they have new vertical poster art everywhere. I've downloaded the beta on my TV, and vertical poster art in the TV app as well on your iPhone and iPad TV app. The first hour that was available, if you open the TV app, everything you've ever purchased was a 16 by 9 image inside of a vertical poster.
Ouch. Okay.
And but within a day, most of it's now vertical poster art. So they're obviously in the middle of changing the back end on all this, and I think the music app is part of that. But I think that's interesting. I did see someone mention that the code name for the Apple Music Sing, not Apple Music Sing, we'll get to that, the translation feature in Apple Music was called Despacito, which is very funny because it was a very popular Spanish song. So everyone... And nobody knew what the lyrics meant. They were just singing it now.
Oh, right. That reminds me of Weird Al's version of Nirvana song, isn't it? Where the whole song is about nobody can understand the lyrics at all. Okay, anyway, off the point there. So, I don't like the sound of vertical things. I got very fed up going through YouTube when it's so much as it's shorts and things. It's like, it looks rubbish on my TV set.
This is so I've been around long enough that this is actually going backwards, because Apple TV way back on the 3rd generation model had vertical movie posters and square TV icons for TV shows. Do you remember that? No,
but actually I do remember vertical film posters. Now you've said, I'd forgotten all about that. I still prefer the landscape ones, but I think
that we're reverting to that. Yeah. Well, it looks nice. The way they've done it, it does look good. And it showcases... Because before, everything was this rectangular lozenge. They were all those app icon shapes. Yeah. Just elongated slightly for the TV function. But, I don't know. It looked a little samey. I think they're having a little bit more fun with these posters, the vertical posters. A lot of them look like movie posters. I think it just feels more natural for the stuff. And it gives it a new visual look. And maybe in 3 years, we'll be back to rectangles again.
This episode is brought to you by NordLayer. The same company's product for personal use is the very well-known NordVPN, but this NordLayer is for businesses. NordLayer is network-ready for small and large businesses, and it combines VPN with access control and threat protection. NordLayer prevents phishing, ransomware, and malware attacks. It lets businesses of any size monitor the health of all its team's devices and user activity and network events. NordLayer helps your firm comply with industry regulatory requirements, and through dark web monitoring and other tools, it spots threats before they can escalate. NordLayer is about zero trust network access, granting access only to the right users, and even then only under the right conditions. All of this, and it just takes a few minutes to set it up with no extra hardware, no complex setting up, no complex configuration. Plans start from just $8 per user per month, and there are special rates for teams with over 50 members. But then there's also an exclusive offer for Apple Insider listeners. You can get up to 22% off NordLayer's annual plans, plus another 10% with coupon code AppleInsider-10. That's coupon code AppleInsider, one word, all lowercase, -10. Go to nordlayer.com/AppleInsider with the coupon code AppleInsider-10 to save right now. And thanks to NordLayer for supporting the Apple Insider Podcast.
We kind of fell off, but one last thing on Apple Intelligence. I was just wondering, where there was this couple of conversations with Craig Federighi and Greg Joswiak. Did you listen to some of these interviews, particularly the Wall Street Journal one?
I've read our coverage of Wall Street Journal, but I've watched other ones. It seems like he and Craig Federighi and Greg Joswiak, are just doing the rounds everywhere and giving out the same information, which seems actually surprisingly detailed for Apple. Mm-hmm. What were they saying to Joanna Stern on Wall Street Journal?
Detailed and restrained. It's actually really interesting because they were basically saying they didn't say it explicitly, but they were saying we shared too much last year, and now you're going to find out when it's ready.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and because they kept getting pressed on when's the new Siri coming, when is this coming, when is that coming, and it all basically was just you'll find out, and that is back to the good Apple. WWDC, same thing.
Yeah.
We only got shown what was ready, absolutely ready. Now they clarified the features we saw in the ad and during WWDC's keynote for contextual intelligence were all working. Those were filmed live demos. It's the failure rate that was unacceptable. It's what I said before. If you guys listen to me on the show, this WWDC is like I hit everything on the head. And not to brag or anything, but like at some point in time in the last couple of years, I have really nailed down how Apple thinks about things. So I hope you guys can trust when I say I think Apple is thinking this way, because this is direct out of my mouth through Greg Joswiak at this point. But that interview was really interesting to me because they basically reiterated everything I've been sharing about Apple Intelligence and the way they've been thinking about it. The failure rate was too large. They're still working on it. It needs to be at an acceptable rate. Now, someone asked me, but they have ChatGPT on iPhone. Is their failure rate acceptable? And why is that acceptable and not Apple's? Well, 30% plus for ChatGPT and Gemini. Yeah, it's acceptable, but also it's not Apple's problem if they get it wrong. When Apple puts you into ChatGPT or Google Gemini, you know you're there.
I wouldn't have thought that would
it'd be
stop
like
people.
blaming.
I mean, yeah, it totally isn't Apple.
They would still.
But Apple gets sued for other people's mistakes and things. So, but you think this time it's effective? People are clear.
Well, I don't think people matter so much as legal.
Oh, true.
If people take you to court and you can easily prove that was ChatGPT, then it's the end of the discussion. People are always going to be idiots. That's not really Apple's problem. But at least on paper, you can say, yeah, this isn't our problem. People want access to it. They want access to Google search. It's the best search engine. We're going to give them access to it. They want access to ChatGPT. And they said this, it's the best LLM. We're going to give them access to it. So that's their reasoning. But when you go to Apple's LLM, they do not want it to be mediocre. They don't care that the others are mediocre. That's their business. People want access to the mediocrity. They're going to give it to them. So that's their stance. And that makes sense. And I'm happy that Apple is saying we are not going to release something, not done well just because people want it out now. And they went on to say, why do people complain about Apple Intelligence being quote unquote behind, whatever that means, when we're not even competing on the same grounds? Where they release chatbots that you communicate with via an app and give them all your information. We're releasing frameworks and APIs that navigate across apps. We've set it up so you don't even know you're using Apple Intelligence unless we tell you. And that is the difference. They're out here screaming from the top of their lungs, you're using Gemini everywhere. Versus Apple Intelligence is meant to just make your lives better. Because Joanna Stern made this comment that she doesn't use Apple Intelligence at all. And Joswiak's like, well, I use it every day. And I tend to agree. Unless she's actively avoiding Apple's apps, you would also be using it every day. Apple Intelligence is all over the system now. You can't not use it unless, yes, maybe you're not deliberately opening Image Playground or using the writing tools function. But Apple Intelligence is also being used to power recommendations. So there's so much that you don't even realize. But Apple's also not out here saying everything is Apple Intelligence, right? They briefly mentioned Workout Buddy, I think, was powered by their models, but then they never mentioned it again. They were just like, it's Workout Buddy. It's not Apple Intelligence, right? So I think, as I've said many times before, Apple is doing what we should have always been doing with AI, treating it as a tool. It is a background tool. It is a hammer, right? This is a piece of technology that can make things better. It is not necessarily this thing that needs to be taking over the world and be a central go-to destination. Joswiak says, There's no Apple Intelligence app. You don't open an app and go talk to a chatbot. It is just everywhere. And that is the point.
That makes sense. I like that approach because I've always liked that approach with Apple. I kind of get on with it rather than look at us, we're great, look at this new feature. It's what can you do, what can you use? But you said in that you were right about something, and you nicely said, without not trying to brag about it, I'm going to brag on your behalf because of Vision OS. There was a feature in there that you could, I think it was actually on your AppleInsider Plus wish list for Vision OS. The spatial widgets. I'm not a Vision OS user. I understood it when you were telling me before. I think actually during that stage of the keynote, I was writing about the iPad or something. What have we got? And am I right that it's exactly what you have longed for?
This felt like an obvious guess, and I was surprised that not many people were really even talking about it. But like, we've seen it before. When I wrote this Apple Insider Plus, when we discussed this, my wish list from Vision OS was also an article that I wrote for us. So you can still go read that and see what I wrote about widgets before they were announced. But this felt like an obvious feature. The Microsoft HoloLens demo showed similar of you place these objects around your home, these screens, these widgets. And it just felt like the obvious next step for Apple Vision Pro to gain these permanently fixed objects around your home. And they really are permanent. I've put a few clocks around different rooms, some windows. The window feature is really cool. You can, if you have a panorama, it becomes a 3D window you can go walk up to. You can look around inside of it because there's so much content to view in the panorama. It becomes this object. Just don't run into the wall when you're doing it because there's not actually a window there. But it's all very interesting. I think that it goes further than what I was expecting, and it doesn't go far enough in other ways.
Yeah.
So what I was describing is I needed physical space inside of my environments. Like I wanted a desk, I wanted a wall. Still not there. If you put these widgets around your home, they are only visible outside of environments. So if I put a clock on my office wall, which I have, and then I go to Bora Bora, that clock is no longer there. It doesn't hang in mid-air in space. It's just gone until I close the environment.
I'm not sure to think about that. I kind of see why it wouldn't be, but you put it there to look at it. I'm slightly conflicted. Can you put another clock in the same spot within the environment?
Sure. If you have a widget, so there's other apps that let you do that. Widgetsmith, I think, actually lets you place clocks windows anywhere, because the spatial widgets are objects, right? We talked about this before. I don't mean to repeat myself, but some listeners may not have heard it. There's 3 modes in Vision OS. There's windows, there's objects, and there's environments. The objects have been very lightly used up till now, and these widgets are objects. You can inset them into walls. You can place them on top of surfaces like desks. They will cast a shadow. And then windows are the grabby things that you can resize.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And Widgetsmith has been creating clocks and things, calendars, but they're all windows. They've not actually been widgets, so to speak, so far. Maybe now he can make actual widgets. I think there's probably an API for this, so that'll be interesting. But yes, this is pretty much what I wanted. This is what I explained before, and I hope that developers take advantage of this and we can see a lot more of this.
Okay, I realised when you're describing that I didn't appreciate objects. I got environments and windows, so that's something else. But Vision Pro in general, there's something about it being better organised. Oh, and actually, I remember, I think this was you saying you'd heard this. I'm not sure if it came through, that most of Apple's own apps are now native on Vision Pro instead of being iPad apps.
Nope.
Oh, okay. All right, that's
nothing changed.
Wow.
Literally,
okay. Nothing
changed. So during the keynote, and if you were keeping up with our articles live, you might have actually seen this. I had assumed that the clocks they were hanging on the wall were from a native clock app.
Yeah.
Nope. It was from a new widgets app.
Okay.
The clock app is still an iPad compatible app. Apple introduced 0 new native apps as from the compatibility list into visionOS 26. So for whatever reason, still no movement. And this is a discussion for another time. I think I'm actually going to write an article on that in the next couple of days of where's the native apps. And I think this is going to come down to a internal decision that the apps that are currently compatible, Apple does not view them as necessary for native, at least not yet. So, like Pages is not a native app. Maybe they just don't see any point in making a word processor native. They also changed the app icons. Before, compatible apps just looked like iPad apps. Yeah. Buttons, the little squircles. Now they're squircles inside of 3D bubbles, floating like they're in jars.
Okay, that's an image. But I funny if I was going to ask you about Pages, because a platform without a word processor, I mean, I'm a writer, of course, I think it seems a bit limp, really, but, I suppose there's a limit.
Well, I use Drafts.
Oh, okay. Is Drafts a native app?
It is not. And Agile Tortoise has basically said, I'm good.
So was Apple. Okay. Oh,
yeah.
Don't tell me. Is Microsoft Word a native app on Apple Vision Pro?
Good question. I don't. That app is dead to me, so I haven't checked.
Okay. Well,
no,
leaves as a mystery, but yes. Okay.
It may be. It may not be. I doubt it. Honestly, it could be. But yeah, visionOS. Quickly, we'll hit these last couple of guys, but it didn't get a redesign because everyone else is based on its design. But I don't know if you noticed this, but Liquid Glass isn't an exact copy of visionOS for good reason. visionOS did get some things from the new updates. I think if you look at it, some of the design elements, some of the app designs changed. The Photos icon, it now looks like the Photos icon on iPhone. So like some of these designs actually did make it back to visionOS, funny enough. There's still no real dark mode in visionOS, no dark mode icons, but you can sort everything into folders. There's controller support for PSVR controllers. I attached mine. There's nothing that uses them yet at all. But you can scroll web pages with the joysticks and click with the trigger if you want to. So that's interesting, I guess. That's a good accessibility feature for now until we get games that actually use it. And that won't be until the fall, sadly, unless I find a test flight. But in any case, visionOS. The widgets are the biggest thing. And what we got across iOS, live translation, new features in music and notes, like all of that's there. It's just, visionOS just was not heavily touched upon. We got more types of video that you could watch, stuff like that. But we'll get into visionOS another time. There's plenty to talk about there, even though it's a very small list, but there is still some things. tvOS already mentioned, but nothing there. Screensavers, but there is one killer feature that I'm very excited about.
Yes.
At login, so power on, or I think when you leave a screensaver that's been going for a while, you're presented with profiles.
Oh, okay. Right.
No one would use profiles before because it involved, you hold down this button, then you go over to this menu, and then you select your face. Nobody on Earth was doing that, period. 0.
Right.
Now
3 people will do it.
Okay.
That's all right.
Well, you can turn this off, so some people might because it is an interstitial. But for me, in my household, now we can just say it's me watching or it's my fiance watching, and we get the right up next automatically every time. It's awesome. Who knew? Login screens, William. Login screens.
Yeah.
And that will also become more handy as developers hopefully adapt the login API that will sync all your logins across your ecosystem and stop having you have to log into every device every time.
Oh, I like that.
Theoretically,
yes, that would be good.
Theoretically, what this means, I still don't know. We haven't seen it in action, but theoretically, this means you sign into Disney Plus on your iPhone, and therefore you're signed into Disney Plus everywhere. You pick up your iPad, it's already signed in. You go to your Apple TV, it's already signed in. There's no interstitial. There's no scan this QR code. None of that. It's just done. Who knows? This is the 7th time Apple has done something to try and solve logins. This is the best one by far. I'm very excited for this.
But we'll see.
Developers have to support it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Developers have to support it. I will say, I forgot to mention this earlier. Liquid glass is not optional. Did you know this?
Yes, and I was surprised at some of it. Because you have options within it on the iPhone, I assumed you did on the Mac, and there's far fewer. But in none of these cases can you go back to the old versions. So on the way in, I was thinking, if I don't like this, the old joke, do you go to
for
Android?
users?
But I like it. So.
And developers.
Oh.
It's not optional for developers either. They can't just ignore it for 5 years.
Okay.
So
Adobe
Google,
will try, but all right.
They will.
Yes.
Google and Adobe will try. So Apple actually provided guidelines during their sessions, I believe. Yeah. Liquid glass is not a requirement yet, but they highly recommend everyone go ahead and adopt it because next year it will be. And then after that, all of the old design elements and stuff will just be deprecated.
Wow, I did not know that.
And your app will just, I don't know, cease to function or not render correctly. I don't know. But they're basically giving everyone this year and iOS 27. And I think before the end of iOS 27, if you have not updated, things will start breaking.
I think a point, we need to end soon, but I think we just to take a moment to examine the fact that you just said iOS 27 without any hesitation. We have accepted the renaming just completely. They're good at that, Apple, aren't they? They just do it and then we get used to it. There's so much I want to talk about. Actually, I mean, we touched on the iPad, but I really, really like the iPad stuff, so I hope we'll come back to that at some point. And as a Mac user, there's some things I wanted that we got that don't work, which is just antagonizing, really. I'm sure we'll come to that at some point. But for now, given that you're not anymore wearing your Apple Vision Pro, you're actually on an iPad. So does that mean you're more accessible to people contacting you through other ways? I don't know where I'm going with this. I just see a change in your working life. Does it enable you to be on social media more?
Honestly, probably less, because now it's not a permanently floating window to the left of my head, okay. Right? So yeah, I get what you're hinting at. First of all, I did want to mention, don't install the betas unless you're insane, which if you are, you're like me and do it. I won't blame you. I installed it everywhere, but...
actually,
probably...
no, I'm sorry. You raised a good point. I meant to ask you this. Have you had any regrets from the beta yet? Because I have.
No. I have been fighting with the Journal app, which we didn't get to talk about today. Not fighting, so to speak. The sync is broken.
That explains something. But yes, I had that. Yeah.
But if you leave your Windows, the Journal app open everywhere you want it to sync, and just leave it, it will eventually all catch up.
All right.
I recommend you can make new journals. Go ahead. I recommend not trying to move anything between journals because that won't sync for whatever reason. There's a couple of little bugs there. Hopefully it'll get ironed out in beta 2, but the new journal app is amazing. I love multiple journals. I love having it on an iPad. Yeah. I can just type 1,000 words in a few minutes and not have to massage my thumbs afterwards. It's great. Yes. It's all very good. I'm very excited, and I can't wait for developers to take advantage of more of the API systems and just everything else. But for me, no, I'm enjoying it. The iPad update is great. I have it on Apple Watch. I'm going to try Workout Buddy soon. I'm excited about seeing how that goes. Yeah, just overall, I installed it on macOS, and I don't think I've turned on my Mac or looked at it since I installed it, but I will try that soon. Vision OS, neat. I need to reorganize my home screens. I've been working constantly since WWDC, so I haven't had any personal time with any of these updates yet. So I will tell you if I run into anything crazy, but I'm excited to go in, customize everything. I'm going to turn all my folders different colors and put icons on them. I'm just excited for all of this.
Well, we've spent about an hour talking about how good all this stuff is, and you've just encouraged everybody. I'm sure you didn't mean to, but because you've had no problems, it is encouraging for the betas. I would like to tell you then, I've had a range of problems. One of them is that the bin, it's called the bin in the UK, the trash and the dock on my Mac is sometimes invisible. It's still just there on the dock, except when it isn't. It still works when you know where to go, but otherwise doesn't, and I do not know why. And slightly more seriously, apparently this is inconsistent. It works for some people, but it is pointedly not working for me. Logic Pro will not work on macOS Tahoe for me. Slight problem for me since I really like Logic Pro. It's a temperamental kind of app and it isn't playing nice. I'm going to try launching it in a minute and seeing if it works overnight, like the journal syncing thing. But you think Apple's own apps can go wrong on this. This is why sensible people do not use the betas until they're no longer betas, really. But yeah, I should probably have said that right at the start rather than the end. How about we go back to the social media stuff then? And if anybody wants to complain about us not mentioning this before, how do they blame you?
Well, I am on Blue Sky at Hilly Tech. You can reach me there. You can email me, Wes at AppleInsider.com. And of course, as always, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And we do have a review this week. It was a very nice review. 5 stars from EV Advocate 123. They love the podcast, but most of all, they love how we handle politics. With most of the podcasts they listen to, might as well be a political podcast in recent months. Right. It is amazing you guys can skip over this part that we tell you to skip over this part if you want to. And even when you do discuss it, you don't lean super far to one side or the other. I also love that you also live in Utah and am less than 13, so wish me luck with this new law. So thank you for that review. That might be our youngest audience member, but I'm very happy that you wrote that review and got a hold of us. And again, anyone listening, you can leave reviews. We will read them on the show, good or bad. And always happy to hear from you guys.
Just try and work out how old you have to be before you're allowed on social media and things. Best not to question for it. Just enjoy listening, hopefully. Okay. And in my turn, I'm on YouTube as 58 Keys, but William at AppleInsider.com is typically the best thing for me. Now, we have come to the end of this bit. If you are a paid Apple Insider Plus subscriber, then no, we haven't. Nowhere near close to it, because we're about to ramble on. No, that doesn't really sell it. We're going to pontificate. No, we're just going to chat, really, about WWDC, aka the Super Bowl, in Apple Insider Plus this time. So if you're a subscriber, stick around for that, please. It'll be fun to talk with you. And if you're not, remember, every week in the show description, all the details of how to join us on that. And it'd be so good to have you. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening. Thank you hugely to our sponsors this week, MasterClass and Nordlayer. And Wes, good to talk to you through this kind of rudimentary pulley system we're trying with the iPad. And we'll see how that goes.
Yep, we'll talk next week. But I will say, if this recording is not up to our usual standards, I apologize. And we will be back to recording from our usual stuff next week. Yeah. Until more settings and things come along, or I get a different microphone that actually supports some gain control, something like that. But this is an experiment. So again, if this isn't up to our usual standards, we apologize. Hopefully this at least is hearable and listenable, and you enjoyed the episode this week. Let us know what you think. This is fully recorded across an iPad using FaceTime as the calling source, local recording. As well. So I am recording 2 audio sources simultaneously on my iPad, and William is also recording on his end via Mac. So it's a big experiment. Yeah. So thank you for bearing with us today, and we will be back next week one way or the other.
It's actually part of the point, I think, rather than just Apple has released a new feature, we're actually using it and trying it because that's what it's meant for, isn't it? The reason I use Apple Gear is it's not here's a spec sheet with a list of features, it's doing things with it. And here, if this has worked out, then that's great, and that's why we should be doing it. And if it didn't, forget I said any of this. And speak to you all next time.
Yep, talk then.